Are you addicted to the outcome, or are you trying to escape the process? G'day mate, and welcome to In the Back of My Head podcast, episode 94. It's a creative journal where I rant and rave about creativity, ramble on, try and make some sense of whatever's rattling around in my head, try and get on the straight and narrow, try desperately to enjoy the process as much as possible. I was watching an interview with Christoph Waltz recently of Inglourious Basterds fame. Incredible actor, one of the best. On a show called Last Meals on Mythical Kitchen, which is, I think, low-key, one of the best interview shows on YouTube. Which seems ridiculous, but the way Josh, the host, creates space for these rather famous people to open up in a way that I haven't really seen many other places is fantastic. And Christoph Waltz is a spectacularly thoughtful and wise person, it seems, from this small interview that I watched. I think it's only like 40 minutes or so. But it's funny hearing the right thing at the right time. I think it's always rather valuable listening to talks from acclaimed creative people, if they are at least thoughtful and wise. And listening rather frequently. Shouldn't listen to them as though they are preachers, as though they are spreading the gospel, but to hear the right thing at the right time. You can hear it 1,000 times, but you need to hear it in the right setting, in the right voice. And that was exactly this moment with Christoph Waltz, talking about the American obsession with outcome and product when it comes to creativity, but in general, it's a very commercialized culture. And that finds its way into the entire world's culture due to the American hegemony. Is that how you pronounce that word? And he spoke to rather the European, more traditional European, perhaps not currently, but the traditional European and many other cultures around the world, understanding that the product is simply the final footnote of the process that you go through, and that the process is the entire purpose of doing anything. Speaking only on creativity, really, actually. Things that maybe have less material output, less material importance. We must farm, for the outcome is the important thing. We must feed people. I'm speaking only if to draw a beautiful landscape is the act of drawing, not the act of meditating, the act of witnessing, the act of becoming absorbed in a beautiful landscape that you were witnessing, not the final piece. The landscape already existed. And I really felt that at that moment. And again, about hearing the right thing at the right time, because I preach a lot of bullshit on here, and I am quite hypocritical. Sort of the reason why I do this is to try and deprogram myself, and by deprogramming myself, I might help you deprogram yourself. Get out of your own way. Remove some of the roadblocks. Break some of the cycles, the endless things that we repeat to ourselves that we must adhere to. And I myself have definitely been and am addicted to output and outcome and product when it comes to creativity, when it comes to most things that I do, but I think especially when it comes to creativity. And I'm trying to break out of it, but it's all I've ever known, and it's been in there a long time. There's a cycle that has existed for the past 13, however many years, I don't know. Maybe I was like this as a kid as well. But I'm rapid fire, baby. I like to produce work quickly and put it out quickly, which is not necessarily a bad thing either. I don't want to say that. For in that process of kind of rapid movement when it comes to creativity. Perhaps that is in itself honoring the creation process, excited to get back to the initial creation process rather than savoring and gorging on the product, gorging on the release. But so too, I think it's more likely that putting a thing out, putting out a product, putting out a piece is very addictive. It is a small dopamine hit. It is a small praise hit. To have people say, "Good on you, mate." You can become addicted to that very easily. And I think so too is this tied deeply to my social media addiction, which I haven't really delved into or considered greatly, that I am addicted to social media, that we all are addicted to social media, I suppose, but it's easy to think that you're not affected by it, I think. It's easy to think that you're not. It's a classic addict attitude to look at others who are deep in it and go, "Oh yeah, but I'm not like that, I'm not that bad." But I'm realizing how garbage my attention span is and how obsessed I am with that feedback loop. Creation, put something out, get the feedback, repeat the process. And the process of actually making the thing is left by the wayside, is not the focus. It is something to rush through. It is something to get around. It is something to find shortcuts for. I'll use this as a chance also to mention that I'm trying to wean myself off social media. Difficult as an artist, because everything that we are told in terms of how to market yourselves and how to where to put your stuff, where to put your creativity, where to put your things is through social media. Especially as a music artist, I feel like that's, if you're not on there, what are you doing? So I'll use this as an opportunity to say that I have started a mailing list, and I will be sending things out via my mailing list. And that could have the same effect of like becoming addicted to the responses on my mailing list. However, the mailing list has a more free schedule. It can come out whenever it wants. It's more intentional, and it's whenever, and it's direct. Anyway, that's not really the point of this, but if you are interested in what I'm up to, then yeah, you can sign up to my mailing list, and that's in the description. And I'll just send you stuff directly when it's finished, if it's worth sharing. That's ad over. Now, regardless of whatever addiction I have to that release and to social media and things like that, I think I've been pretty good at self-motivation and dedicating myself to process as much as I can. However, I think the reason why I've been quite down/depressed about creativity at the moment is actually due to working on this video game that I have mentioned in passing a few times. That I have begun to delve into video game making with some mates, which is very exciting. But it's a curious precipice to stand upon, and one that I haven't stood upon in a while, I think. And that is being completely inept. That is being completely childlike. For when it comes to output of music or poetry, writing in general, the podcast, yada yada, various little bits and pieces, things that I do, I know how to do them. At least to my own ability, at least to my own standard. I'm not saying I'm particularly good at anything, but I can achieve a standard for these projects that I'm relatively happy with. Music, for example, I can do. Music, my style of music, my way of producing, my way of writing and rapping and all this stuff is just very doable for me. And so it has become easy, obviously, to then just put out stuff, put out work, and move on to the next one, because I do enjoy that process. I enjoy the act of creating it. And so the addiction is maybe a little less under the radar. But with something like making a video game, or it could be any new skill set that you desire to acquire, then you stand at the precipice of not knowing anything at all, of being totally inept. And I suppose with the other things that I do, the product, the outcome is always at arm's reach. There's work to be done, but I can see the thing achievable, right? It's right there. It's just right there, and I can get to it relatively easy and quickly if I desire. And with this new venture, again, could be anything. Doesn't have to be video games, it could be anything. The outcome is not even visible, is not even perceivable, is not but a twinkle in my eye. It's very strange to come to the realization of working for someone like myself who likes to work quickly, or at least has worked quickly in the past, to now get to this point where I can see this project that might take 5-10 years to actually get anywhere with. Not saying that there won't be something to show for it, but the more I get into it, the more I realize just how much of a child I am, how much I have to learn, not even just like refining skill sets, but learning what skill sets I actually even need. As the first part of building up this skill set is not even working on the individual skill sets, but rather figuring out what you actually need to know. The first bit of knowledge you need is what you don't know, what you need to find out. So coupled with feeling inept and childlike, I'm also working with people, which is another pull towards having something to show for it. Wanting to show something to the team that, hey, I'm working on this thing and here's a thing that I can show to you. I don't have that. And there is a deep sense of guilt and uncertainty behind my own abilities that comes with that. And these two things, social media addiction / outcome addiction, plus the guilt of working with others and not feeling particularly valuable to the team, has really brought this to the front of my mind, that I am trying to get away from the process. I'm trying to skip the process. I'm trying to get to the outcome as quickly as possible, as painlessly as possible. And because that is completely unachievable, I have become quite frustrated with myself over the past month, which in a way is a very reasonable response, but something I want to look deeper into, because that is a surefire way to burn out of any project very, very quickly. It's made me kind of ask the question if I am really going for longevity here as not even as a creative, not even as an artist, but just as a person who is excited and happy to be living and doing things. As I feel this obsession with outcome is a recipe for disaster, depression, and a lack of satisfaction with one's own time. For to be learning these skills and to just have the time on one's hands to sit and just make stuff is an absolute privilege and should be the entire reason that you kind of do any of this. But this is the good bit. That the thing that you hold in your hands is a great little bow on top. But if you don't enjoy the actual chiseling of the sculpture, or piecing the sentences together that makes up a chapter, that makes up a novel, if you don't enjoy the endless fucking around on a keyboard or guitar to find the one riff or melody that will actually make everything click, if you don't enjoy that adventure, if you don't enjoy that, if you don't enjoy the work, then there is absolutely no hope in finding peace in making anything, in finding a sense of actual purpose. And the path that I went down with this, and I'm still exploring it as an idea, but I was trying to cut corners. I was trying to use Blender. I've been trying to use Blender a lot more, which is 3D software, 3D modeling software, because I don't think I'm a good drawer. I struggle with perspective a lot. I struggle with piecing things together in a 3D space, perhaps on a 2D plane, but nonetheless, I need to, my brain works better actually being able to zoom around a thing. And so my idea is I'm going to create drawings in Blender and then paint onto the surfaces, onto these 3D surfaces. I can create like these essentially illustrated pieces, but in a 3D space, in 3D software. And that has sort of worked, and I see others do it, and I think there is a future there. But I hit a roadblock the other day, which was I built a 3D scene, relatively happy with it, and I went to the painting part of it, the painting process, the actual painting onto the surface of this 3D model, and I was reminded, and this is such an obvious realization, but such a dumb realization, that like, but I still need to know how to paint. That this visualization tool, which is 3D modeling with the outcome of being a 2D image, is a great tool to be utilized, and one that I want to incorporate as much as I can into my process, into my workflow to make 2D artworks for this game or for anything else. However, a tool is one thing and a shortcut is another. And I think I was trying to use it as a shortcut to get around the fact that I hadn't put the time in to just painting. And I got very upset and frustrated with myself because I went to do it and I couldn't do it. And luckily I was in a pleasant enough headspace that a few days later I said, fuck it, I'm just gonna paint something else. Sat down at my computer and painted a 2D image based on a sculpture that I found made by Sean Tan, and I will post it at some point soon. But the point was reminding myself that there is no shortcut to this process. There's no getting around the process itself. And I had a bloody grand old time painting this image. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And it lined up perfectly with this interview with Christoph Waltz. That I was trying to rush through a process. And then I took a second. And I became absorbed in the process instead. And I found myself in a much more peaceful mindset, found my heart rate went down. And I was much more forgiving of myself. I spent a lot longer than I intended to do a thing, but at the end, I just enjoyed that time. I just enjoyed the time it took. And I love a tool, and I do love a shortcut of certain things, without a doubt. I've spoken before about certain audio tools that have come about in the age of machine learning that have really helped me and created some shortcuts for very just technical stuff. Removing breaths and removing particular frequencies out of voices has been fantastic. There are certain places where shortcuts are really good, when they're not really part of the creative process at all. But I do worry about AI being the ultimate shortcut, the ultimate way to skip the process of actually just putting brush to paper, be it digital or be it physical, be it musical, be it word, be it whatever. It's a metaphor, baby. I think it's a dangerous realm that we're delving into of this ultimate form of shortcuts, coupled with ever-increasing social media addiction, that the act of creation is quick, that the act of creation is solely obsessed with the outcome, with the product that gets posted, and not the time, the potentially immense amount of time that it takes to actually just make a thing. For that time is visible, that time is heard, that time is felt. That time is the entire purpose of doing any of this. That final product is when the project dies. It's It's when you open your eyes out of the meditation and go back to life. No longer exists. Is no longer with you. You can no longer converse and grow with the project. It serves an entirely different purpose now. I think I'm toying with various concepts and realizations about my own head at the moment. As I do create frequently, as I dedicate a lot of time to it, but I am fickle and I am impatient. And this mindset I'm in right now might change next week or next year or whatever. But as a goal currently, and I hope forever, I aim to be rather indulgent in the time just spent creating. Not the final product, but simply the process. As I also had the thought while writing this stuff down was that the process is also where the details come from and the stories come from. The little moments that actually give life and your art meaning. I'm sure I've kind of mentioned this on the podcast before, but something that I was always enamored with was sitting down at the dinner table as a kid, and Dad always had a new story to tell, always had another life experience from way back in the day that he told us about. That I was like, how have you done so goddamn much? I wouldn't say he's a particularly worldly man or anything like that. He has just done a lot of weird shit. And nor is he someone necessary to look up to, but I enjoyed those stories, and I enjoy that early lesson that if you focus on where you're headed and not where you are, then you can miss all these little moments, all these little stories. But the products and the outcomes are simply the chapter markers. And in between all of the chaos, all the nonsense, all the time, all the process is actually where all the details and the stories lie. The ones that you haven't read yet, the ones that you haven't discovered yet. And if you try and skip over them, you're going to miss the entire point of the book, the novel. I feel like I want to wrap it up in a better way than that, but I feel like that's it. Did any of that resonate with you? Are you barreling towards the finish line rather than enjoying the race? Metaphor upon metaphor, clunky motherfucker. God damn. It's an absolute privilege to be able to sit here and work on stuff, to write music, to draw, to work on these games. It's just a privilege to have time. And I would like to become obsessed and dedicate myself with that time, to that time, as much as I can. And I think I'm in that direction. But my mind is still torn between that and the outcome and the social media addiction and all these other things. Ongoing process. It's always an ongoing process. Alright, that's this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, mate. As I mentioned, I'm trying to get off social media a little bit, especially as a marketing tool for any of my work. I think long term will have a very beneficial effect on my mental health. So, if you would like to be updated with things, including this podcast as they come out, whenever they come out, they might take however long they take, then you can jump on the mailing list, which is below. Or if you know me personally, just let me know and I'll fucking add you manually, baby. I hope you have a good one. I hope you enjoy just making stuff and using this as a meditation. Finding those little details and finding those little stories. Alright, catch you on the next one, mate. Be well.